The man accidentally tumbled from the top floor due to a bird's droppings. He nearly lost his life, but still managed to flirt with the girls before falling into a swimming pool. He thought fate was on his side, only to smack his head on the bottom. As he hovered near death, he thought, there are still so many beautiful women I haven't met. How can I die now? Suddenly, a woman dressed in traditional clothing appeared in the water and kissed him. Dying in the arms of a beauty? Not a bad way to go. When he came to, his face was wrapped in white cloth. What kind of creepy hospital is this? He wondered as he stood up and looked around. He found himself in a traditional room. Curious, he poked a hole in the window to peer outside and saw women in ancient attire. When he stood to stretch, he noticed something alarming. His valuables were missing and his chest was oddly exposed. He hadn't worked out in ages. Glancing at his hands and feet, something felt off. In the mirror, he saw he had become a woman. He blinked, touched his reflection. It didn't change. This had to be a dream. Even in dreams, women are this beautiful? He joked. But wait, wasn't this the woman who rescued him from drowning? Just then, a girl burst in with open arms, offering a comforting embrace. This must be the dream he always wanted. But the liquid in his mouth was vile. What kind of potion is this? He gagged. Dreams aren't supposed to taste this bad. He walked outside, only to find a corridor filled with kneeling people. Trying to sneak by, he was spotted instantly. "Oh no!" he panicked. They chased after him, shouting, "Your Majesty!" He dashed off, but there was nowhere to run, just palaces everywhere. "Am I in a historical drama?" he muttered. Suddenly he halted, causing the crowd to crash into him. The real crisis dawned on him. Overnight, his penis had vanished. "Where is it?" he shrieked in disbelief. "This can't be happening. I just slept a bit and they castrated me." He screamed internally. Everyone was wearing olden clothes. It hit him. He'd time-traveled. Terrified, he asked his servant what happened. The previous owner of the body had drowned, passed out, then fled to the lake. Now, unhindered by male parts, he bolted, outpacing the others and leapt into the lake, soaring 3 meters. Surrounded by lovely faces, he thought, finally, I'm home. But instead of water, he hit thick mud. He looked like a soaked husky. Furious, he asked why the lake was dry. A maid explained they drained it to prevent him from falling again. And then came the blow. Everyone called him Mama. He didn't want that title. She, now he, was told that he was the queen consort, not yet married to the king. He was dazed. Not only had he lost his male identity, but now he had to become a man's wife. Meanwhile, the king, unaware his queen was once a man, was reading in the hall. The old eunuch noticed the king looked tired and checked on him. The king, annoyed, said studying came before comfort. But then, his muddy queen barged in, demanding the lake be refilled. The king hesitated. It was the Grand Dowager's order to drain it. Though king, he was still her beautiful grandson. The queen was irritated. She then noticed a book and tried to take it, but the king refused. Wives must obey their husbands, he reminded her. Is this the Korean Empire now? She snapped. You're the king? Then I'm the king too. She fainted dramatically. While she was leaving, the king grabbed the book. During the scuffle, it flew into a nearby basin. As it sank, the king sighed in relief and sat on his throne. But the queen followed him, demanding answers. He brushed her off, saying she could do as she pleased. Knowing danger could strike any time, she decided she must return to her era. She dunked her face into a foot basin, determined. Maids surrounded her, trying to stop her. Then she tried to submerge her head in a fish tank. Why? Because falling into water had brought her here. Maybe water would take her back, but it didn't work. Exhausted, she lay on the bed and asked her maid's name. The maid was heartbroken. They had grown up together, yet she was forgotten. She needed to find out what dynasty this was, but no one dared speak the king's name. Eventually, she learned her husband was Lewin Beam, a puppet monarch with no real power and infamous for being lustful. Faced with such a queen, how could he resist? As he tried to caress her head, she snapped, "We're both men. Stop playing." Tomorrow was their wedding day, but she couldn't marry a man. She took him aside to confess. As she hesitated, the king reached for her again, making her nauseous. I'm actually, she started. The king interrupted, assuming she was sick. He called the royal doctor immediately, promising to spare no expense. The physician gave her a strange pill. It caused a nosebleed. She spat it out, furious. Then came intense steam therapy, like turning into roasted pork. Then acupuncture. "This isn't even my body. Do what you want," she muttered. Hearing this, the doctor brought out even bigger needles. Terrified, she faked regaining her memory. "What's my name?" he asked. "Why should I remember your name?" She shot back. He had her held still for the procedure. "If you hurt me, I'll be queen tomorrow and have your head," she threatened. The next day, before she even opened her eyes, she was being prepped for the wedding. Drenched in sweat under countless layers of clothing, she was suffocating. The king, all dressed up, waited to greet her. The maids found her breastplate missing. "First queen in history without one," she smirked. At the wedding, she froze. A nudge from her maid reminded her to kneel. She quickly followed the ceremony. When it was time to drink the wedding wine, she downed hers in one go, scaring her maid. Once it was over, she ordered her crown off. Her neck was killing her. No time to rest, though. She got shocking news. She was expected to bear the king's children. The thought horrified her. She hatched a plan: get the king drunk. When he refused, she tried flattery and teasing. "Look at my dancing shoulders." Eventually, she poured wine into his mouth and kept refilling his cup. Just when she thought she succeeded, he started undressing. She resisted, but he blew out the candle. On her first night as queen, he sought a concubine. She wasn't jealous. She was interested. Deep inside, she was still a man. 2 days in, she still hadn't adjusted. Meanwhile, a palace girl whispered gossip about a rival concubine being the reason she fell into the lake. "She's too beautiful to be evil," she thought. "She's my treasure now." She tried to befriend her, but the concubine ignored her. Suddenly, she met the king and acted sweet. The queen felt jealousy boil. Why didn't she reincarnate as the king instead? She couldn't even flirt with concubines. The concubine didn't know the queen was actually a man, nor that the king, despite his beauty obsession, was weak to alcohol. Once he was passed out, the queen relaxed. Still wary, she secured her clothes and slept on the floor. She tossed all night. By dawn, she was summoned to visit the Empress Dowager. On her first day meeting the in-laws, she couldn't recognize anyone. Choosing randomly, she greeted someone who turned out not to be the right person. The dowager was youthful and energetic. "You almost look the same age," the queen said. This pleased the elder, but soon came the dreaded topic: childbearing. She cringed. The dowager caught her drift and eased off. Watching their silent conflict, the queen knew she was in for a rough future. Now, the dowager only cared about naming descendants, and the queen, who only knew how to pick her nose, was the dowager's top concern. When etiquette training began, she believed she could handle it, but there was no leg shaking or leaning back, just dainty steps and poised postures. She gave up instantly. In one scene, after blowing out all 13 candles, she still chose to eat rice. Food gave her more strength than learning manners. A leopard can't change its spots. She even let her maid eat as well. Thanks to the headache, old memories from this body surfaced. Seeing her grimacing, Mama patted her on the back, thinking she'd been poisoned. She ended up vomiting, and now the queen fully grasped the situation. The queen truly loved the king, but he had married her due to pressure from the Empress Dowager. It was a political move, making him a pawn. This time, the queen no longer worried about whether he desired her. While the Empress Dowager was working her facial muscles, the queen walked up to her. She knew she needed to build a good rapport, so she acted submissive, attempting to flatter the dowager. Seeing her seemingly cheerful, the queen hinted at refilling the pond, but was immediately denied. Apparently, the Empress Dowager's granddaughter had almost drowned there. According to palace law, concubines should have been executed, but bloodshed had recently been forbidden, so they were spared. If she wanted to refill the pond, they'd have to face execution first. The queen set some terms for the king to choose a concubine to sleep with for the night, but the king refused, suspecting she might be a spy for the Empress Dowager. He didn't want to take the risk. Truthfully, the queen didn't want to sleep with him either. Seeing his hesitance, she decided on a clever trick. She removed her robe. "How about this? Hurry up, or we'll be discovered," she urged. But he didn't make a move. As night came, she dressed like a man, pretending she was going out to inspect the commoners. In reality, after being cooped up in the palace, she simply wanted a taste of the outside world. Her servant prepared everything and reminded her to be back before the curfew. Disguised as a man, the queen made her way to the kingdom's most famous brothel. This is where an amusing chapter begins. She was craving noodles. Twisting them around chopsticks, she threw them into hot oil. After drinking heavily, she'd woken up with a hangover and was desperate for instant noodles. But there were none. Only power remained. The chef got the order and quickly got to work, cutting beef, adding veggies. The queen only gave a quick glance and showed no interest. The chef felt insulted. Fuming, he grabbed his knife again. Annoyed, the queen tossed down her chopsticks. In his anger, the chef prepared sweet broth for the noodles. The queen tasted it and spat it out. Furious, the chef slammed his blade onto the cutting board. She kept finding fault in every version. "I won't cook anymore," he shouted. So, the queen took it upon herself to cook in the palace kitchen using an iron pot. Smiling, she declared, "Before I time traveled, I was a top chef. How dare you underestimate me?" She claimed it was her first time cooking, yet she chopped vegetables at lightning speed and finished quickly. She sliced the dough into thin strips, rolled them on chopsticks, and deep-fried them. Crushing spices with force, she filtered them to recreate the taste of instant noodles. The chef doubted the result. Still, he tried the broth. It wasn't bad. Then he took a full bite. He was hooked. The flavors were rich, and the noodles had the perfect chew. "Truly godlike," he admitted. The queen slurped the entire bowl of broth. "This flavor!" she exclaimed. Her maid started drooling with desire, showering her with compliments. The queen was pleased and offered to share. Mid-meal, the king came by. Locking eyes with her, he admitted he'd known she snuck out for drinks the night before. Shocked, he left. The queen had gone to the brothel disguised as a man. The mistress immediately realized she was a woman. "We don't take female customers," she said, but the large payment changed her mind. Inside were countless charming women. Delighted, the queen smiled wide, lipstick on her lips. She wasn't satisfied yet. "Who will undo my belt?" she teased. The brothel madam, horrified, had never seen such a pervert in 20 years. Meanwhile, the king was in a secret meeting, discussing how to regain power from the Empress Dowager. The queen, drunk, stumbled in. The curfew bell rang. She rushed back, but those in the room misunderstood. The king, believing she was an assassin sent by the Dowager, tore his robe to cover his face and drew his sword. The queen thought she was being robbed, offering money in defense. Still, the king attacked. "I'm from the special forces," she shouted, mimicking a sword with her hand and taunting him. The king paused. Suddenly, another sword flew through the air, knocking the cloth off his face. A man appeared to protect the queen. The king fought with one hand, hiding his face with the other. His reinforcements arrived, and he escaped. The man turned to the queen, who had fainted. From then on, the queen stopped wandering aimlessly. She had new hobbies. The chef wasn't happy about her constant presence in the palace kitchen. Though she was queen, he didn't care. He was the head chef. Displeased, she challenged him to a cook-off. First round, knife skills. The chef julienned carrots while stealing glances. He smirked, until he saw the queen's perfect cuts. Next, the stove roared to life. He poured oil, cracked eggs, and added flour. The queen remained calm. While he fussed over presentation, she finished a seafood hot pot. The contest ended, but the chef refused to concede. He claimed taste mattered more. So, a courtier was called to judge. He tasted the queen's dish, and his eyes sparkled. "Delicious," he praised. He turned to the chef, but said nothing more. Convinced? Not at all. "Who are you? Why are you even here?" he asked. The queen found his words silly and gave him a cold glare. The chef quivered in fear. After that, she became the new head of the palace kitchen. Watching his staff treat her with respect, the chef fumed but stayed silent. Despite her power, she still had to sleep beside the king each night. The queen wasn't pleased. The king couldn't sleep either. She remembered someone telling her not to trust the king. He too suspected her of being the dowager's informant. They both pretended to sleep. She stretched her legs against his. Woken by his mumbling, she slapped him. The king groggily embraced her, calling her by a concubine's name. Angry, the queen punched him until he was fully awake. He assumed she was jealous. She forced him to get up, even though it was still dark. He wanted more sleep. They fought over the blanket. With strength, the queen barked, "Be quiet and sleep." Even kings should know humility. The queen had a man's soul. In ancient times, a queen should have been running the harem, but she was in the kitchen learning to cook. Today, knife in hand, she would show those old scholars true gourmet skills. First, she took fresh beef and sliced it precisely. She caught a special golden fish, removed its fins, placed them on a grill, and brushed them with oil. Salt was sprinkled. Step 1 was complete. She placed the grill in a clay oven in the palace. The fish crackled. Now came the waiting game, slow roasting overnight. The fish emerged crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, aromatic. Her face smudged with soot. She awoke to see the fish ready for the Empress Dowager. But the Dowager had a painful wisdom tooth and didn't want to eat. Still, hearing her daughter-in-law had cooked overnight, she gave it a try. One careful bite, her eyes lit up. "What is this flavor?" she asked. The queen awaited the eunuch's reply. The Empress Dowager visited her with a serious look, making the queen anxious until she praised her. Hand on her chest, the Dowager said she hadn't tasted food this divine in years. "This flavor makes people truly happy," she said. The queen planned to dedicate the dish to the Dowager, making her see her as a kind daughter-in-law. Curious, the Dowager asked how she made it. The queen explained that she grilled and baked it while carefully watching the fire. She added, "It's not just tasty, it keeps you young." Her sentiment made the Dowager feel special. "I'll cook for you every day," she promised. With that bond, they began filling the pond, bucket by bucket. But rushing too fast caused a mishap, so progress slowed. The queen then had an idea. "Here, pour it here like this." The method worked. Efficient, yet not tiring. The water rose quickly. Within 10 days, the pond was full. But more surprising news arrived. The Empress Dowager wanted the king to expand the harem. Their assets were shared, so wasn't the emperor's wife also hers? She seemed to forget the queen. What mattered most to her now was increasing the number of royal wives. Reportedly, the emperor's harem had 6 palaces, 3 consorts, 9 noble consorts, 27 concubines, and 81 attendants. She counted, nearly 100 beauties. "Is this paradise?" passers-by would wonder. The queen suggested keeping it simple. 3 palaces are enough, she reasoned. Less is better than none. Meanwhile, the Dowager still longed for the queen's food. Since tasting it, she rejected other dishes. But eating food made by someone younger might feel shameful. Determined, the queen headed to the kitchen to create a heavenly dish the Dowager had never experienced. Her feet rest on the platform, relying on collective wisdom to earn approval. The deputy eunuch quickly brings the prize cow's milk to the kitchen, not a single drop left in the jar. Seriously? Just enough won't cut it. But how valuable was cow's milk back then? It required 5 cows to fill a single jar. If even a drop was missing, she'd threaten decapitation with a tiny silver ladle. Wrapping potatoes into a sphere catches everyone's attention. The cooking is done, but the cow's milk is still missing. The eunuch returns carrying a clay vessel. Good work. The milk is transformed into a thick, creamy texture, though the flavor is plain. With the addition of white sugar, the aroma of milk fills the air. Boiled potatoes are added to the milk, decorated, and served. 3 minutes later, the presentation is stunning. With a touch of seasoning, a portion of potato is soaked in fragrant milk. Complete. The Empress Dowager tastes the mashed potatoes and is instantly hooked. She even licks the leftover milk in her mouth. Yet, she's a bit disappointed. The kitchen is too far from the palace, and some milk was spilled. The Empress regrets this. The queen reflects quietly. Her 2 decades of physics training suddenly sparks an idea. She rushes to the carpenters to invent a marvelous device. At lunchtime, both the Empress Dowager and queen wait anxiously, stomachs rumbling. Finally, the queen's dish arrives, carried in a sedan chair. The food is placed on a 2-layered bronze stand. The Empress takes a bite of the soft yet crispy potato cake with gooey cheese strings. It's divine. The queen sits silently, waiting for judgment. The smaller sedan chair returns, revealing only a few leftover cakes. The Empress gives the meal 5 stars and compliments the unique food carrier. The queen smiles, unaware that concubines now start winning the king's affection. That sight hurts, but she still seeks to align with them. The Empress Dowager holds real power and wants to topple the royal line. Using the excuse that the concubines hurt her, she forces them to admit guilt. As they cast accusing glances, they blame the queen. The king ignores his bleeding hand and scolds her for displaying emotion in public. As he's about to take the blame, the queen stops him. She walks past the concubines, declaring herself their protector. Among suspicious stares, the queen claims she meant to sacrifice herself. She refuses to let the innocent pay. This enrages the Empress Dowager. She now sides with an outsider. The concubines sigh dramatically. If she faints, they'll faint too. "Someone clean up this mess," she demands. The king approaches. Will he carry her? No. He dodges and gently lifts the concubine. The queen's palace now abandoned, DPCA is heartbroken. He rushes to embrace the queen. They exchange glances with the king. Back at her quarters, the queen doesn't dare open her eyes as others weep around her. Even in her dreams, she imagines escaping, running joyfully to a lake, but someone stops her. It's the queen mother. "You can't return home," she says. She ordered a spell to keep her body forever trapped here, until death. Awakening from the nightmare, the queen's first instinct is to end it all, but Dae grabs her leg, stopping her from jumping. She doesn't know that. Only by leaping into the lake can she return to modern times. People call for help, but none dare to touch her. Two attendants pull her back, tears streaming, preventing her from leaping. They tug at her legs while pushing her down. Unresponsive, the queen gives up. "I won't go anymore," she says. Sitting by the lake, she spots the small eunuch. He's the same height as her. He wades into the lake, but even at the center, the water only reaches his waist. This isn't working. Suddenly, the Empress Dowager calls her again. Furious, she now wants the queen in the harem. That's definitely not good. The queen can only agree for now. She says she'll become a dignified queen, the Empress Dowager's most loyal servant. But her mind is set on the powerful prime minister. She returns to the palace, sitting in a corner, muttering, "The world of women is terrifying. A simple guy like me can't handle this. It's all her husband's fault." While she vents her anger, the king appears behind her. She's full of sorrow. Even her mother wants her removed from her position. Her life is miserable. The king's eyes widen. She mocks him. "You must be happy now. The woman you love can finally be queen." He reaches out, but she pulls away and throws him out. Still frustrated, he grabs the hairpin from her head as she breaks down. A sudden rain falls from the heavens. The queen dances with joy in the rain, seen by the king. She's captured his heart once more. Delighted, she believes she can now go home. The king offers an umbrella, apologizing for the misunderstanding. She insists he leave quickly. Irritated, he argues. As he departs, he turns back and hands her the umbrella. She resumes dancing in the rain. Thunder strikes. Everyone sleeps peacefully. Sneaking out, the queen notices her attendants look worn out. She feels remorse. "You must build the land of Zanan for the future," she says. Life in the palace is draining. At the lake again, she stares at the water. Now is her chance to return. She breathes deep, braces herself, and jumps. But nothing happens. What went wrong? She struggles to swim back up, her strength fading. The king rushes to save her, but even unconscious, she resists. She pushes him away, even while fainting. Enraged, he demands why she's so reckless. Doesn't she know the consequences of messing with the future? But the queen storms off, ignoring him. Back at the lake again, she refuses to listen. The king tries to calm her, but she's furious. Their argument is interrupted by servants who escort her away. He picks up her brooch, heart heavy. She returns to her room alone, realizing she could have died. Why can't she go back? DPCA questions her early morning visit to the lake. She says they were just exploring, but why can't they return? She thinks, if a soul from the modern world lives in a body here, would they ever want to return? Maybe she doesn't want to anymore. She wonders if anyone in the palace knows magic. Probably not, but maybe someone does. She visits her mother-in-law. "Do you know magic?" she asks. The empress is caught off guard, thinking the queen is testing her. When the queen glances at a nearby table, the empress misreads it. "This is where I cultivate character," she says. Disappointed, the queen returns. She thinks, the original body must have had strong morals. But then a serious concern hits her. If this body were used inappropriately, how could she face modern life again? Infuriated, she pokes herself with a needle and screams. She even tries casting a spell herself. Nothing happens. Instead, she gets a gift from the king and a note. She feels numb. All this was orchestrated by a man? She starts singing sadly. Maybe jumping into the lake made her sick. A voice says, "Come here, let me clean you up." She says she's not a child. On the other side, the king sneezes too. It's not a cold, he claims, but it is. Despite being ill, he shows up on time. But troubling news arrives. The ministers want to depose the queen. He disagrees. Even the royal ancestors are upset. "Who dares touch my wife?" he exclaims. The queen lives in luxury, never needing to lift a hand. But she isn't happy. Though the air is clean and crisp here, and there's no city pollution or hunger, she misses modern-day snacks. Tears swell. DPCA visits to talk about Empress matters. The king arrives too, glaring at him. The queen, unhappy, speaks of wastefulness. Her eyes widen. All she wants is peace. How could this happen? Suddenly, she sneezes again. The king kneels, hands her the brooch, and confesses his love. "Give me a chance," he says. "I'll protect you." Hesitating, she agrees to live in harmony. "Today marks the first day of our peaceful life," she says. "Don't say that like it's an anniversary," she thinks. It makes her uncomfortable, fearing emotional slips. But the king sees nothing wrong. Now, even food delivery exists in the palace. The delivery boys are all handsome. If they're not good-looking, they don't get the job. Soon, dashing young men are seen everywhere in the palace, serving meals, chatting with maids, or spreading tales of the queen's bravery. They avoid meeting her directly, but the rumors fly, making her a national heroine. It turned out that the Queen Mother was afraid of being confined within the palace walls. However, as the news began to spread, it quickly became exaggerated. If her statements were in fact untrue, then the Dowager Queen risked rescuing the concubine with possible malicious intent. The rumors rapidly reached the Dowager, and she could not disregard them. Once regarded as a witch, she had now become a revered figure, effortlessly reshaping her image. "People are calling you a wicked woman now," the king commented, noting her well-timed arrival, just as her father brought someone forward to testify against the empress. "The queen is our savior. We must always remember her generosity. I'll step back if he comes to my room tonight," she added. The king consented, and the concubine immediately went to seek the queen. A palace maid informed her that the king had already fallen asleep. Suddenly, the queen appeared and opened the door, warmly welcoming her inside. She then closed the door behind them, denying entry to anyone else. The queen sat down cheerfully, but noticed the concubine sitting far from her. When she moved closer and looked into her eyes, she was met with a cold, emotionless stare. Quickly, the queen tried to explain. "I don't care for the king. I only care for you. Let's bathe together tonight." "Tonight, I must spend the night with the king," the concubine responded. "Why? That makes me so upset." The concubine was delighted. While the queen simply wanted to bond, the concubine was only interested in court politics. The queen felt disgraced and said, "Wishing you both happiness." Thinking she had won, the concubine left confidently. Already bathed and dressed for the night, the queen returned, diligently adjusting the ceremonial banner, though her handiwork left something to be desired. The assistant steward then entered with a basket of flowers. "Who sent these?" she asked. "They're from the king. He said it's an anniversary present." The queen smashed them and tossed them into the fire. "You took my love, and now you're mocking me. I'm not happy about this." Her ambitions had grown even bolder. She now aimed to become someone as influential as Edison. As she pondered, she suddenly fainted. The royal chef noticed she had stopped breathing. Meanwhile, in modern times, her male counterpart awoke and saw a doctor. It had been a week. Though conscious in his mind, he couldn't move or speak. Back in the Joseon era, the king tried desperately to wake the queen. The royal physician arrived, checked her pulse, and declared her lifeless. No breath, no heartbeat. Still, reviving her might be possible. The king carried her back to her chamber. The imperial doctor took out steel needles and began acupuncture. Miraculously, she came back to life. "King, why are you here?" He took her back to her mother's home for rest. It was her first time returning home. How would it feel? There she found a treasure chest filled with gold. It sparkled magnificently. Her family prepared a modest breakfast, though it included 18 different dishes, such as nourishing turtle soup. Waking up, she realized she was still in Joseon, but it was preferable to being a vegetable in the present. The queen, feeling restless in her room, sat up and noticed the entire space glowed with golden light. This clearly isn't the royal palace. As she was talking, her father walked in, asking about her health. She handed him the entire bowl of medicine. It was the first time she had spoken to him. When she turned to leave, he stopped her with a formal bow. Feeling awkward, she stepped aside and reluctantly accepted it. Eventually, he stopped after her persistent protests. They sat together. Her father glanced around and remarked that the room's decorations were too plain for his daughter. "Once you're back, this place will come alive again," he said happily. He had also lined up a group of eligible men for her. "Are they here to help treat my condition?" she asked. Because her maternal family was so wealthy, they even had lavish rooms filled with jewels and makeup artists. The queen attempted to flee, but was caught by Kong Muan and Lam Duo. After the makeover, she was initially pleased with her new look, but her mood didn't last long. Soon she felt a wave of sorrow again. She realized her body had fully recovered. She also remembered it was her maid's birthday, which deeply touched her. "But how do I know how to play the zither?" she wondered. Though she had never practiced, her hands played effortlessly. Strange memories lingered in her mind, voices of women echoing inside her thoughts. As she played absent-mindedly, she became lost in thought. How should I live now? Will I truly become a woman? She thought of the one who had harmed her, still beyond the reach of justice. How can I stop his birth? But who exactly was he? At that moment, the king received news that the queen had woken up. He rushed to find her. Spring had arrived. the season of blossoming love. Don't underestimate me. I'm like a wild boar, he said, blushing. The bouquet the queen had discarded earlier landed near the king. He found her, holding the flowers. The queen grew shy. I found these, he said, offering them to her. Her cheeks turned pink. He asked how she felt, concerned. She tried to shake the thoughts from her head. Go away, she muttered. When he tried to take back the flowers, she stopped him. He thought she must like them, but her mood said otherwise. Just then, her father arrived. Hearing the king had come, he welcomed him in. Please come inside and make yourself comfortable, the queen said. I'll return to the palace now. Her father felt guilty for not taking better care of her. The queen seemed saddened by her father's state. Not wanting to linger at home, she left that same day, escorted by both her father and the king. Spending a day with the king, what would happen? They looked as though they were dancing. The queen thought it was a tango and joined in playfully. They sparred with equal strength and skill. Just then, a sword pierced the paper door. An intruder. The king pinned him to the wall and reached for his mask. While they wrestled, the queen appeared, wielding a valuable vase. She swung it toward the intruder, who dodged, only for the vase to strike the king instead. Guards arrived. To cover up the incident, the king embraced the queen and leaned in to kiss her. Just as DCA entered, he saw the kiss. Her father had also just woken up. The queen suddenly opened her eyes and took initiative. No matter who I am, man or woman, I'll lead. She pulled DCA out of the room, giving them privacy. DCA, confused by the crashing sounds, feared for the queen's safety. Inside, the two were still kissing passionately. Suddenly, the queen paused, gaining clarity. The king waited patiently, eyes closed, but guilt overwhelmed her. This is a fight between body and soul. I am in control. The king placed a hand over her mouth, stopping her words. She lay silently in his arms. Why are you in my dreams? I'm sorry, she whispered, then fell asleep. Quietly, the king crept toward the storage room. He locked the door behind him. His mission? To uncover evidence against the Kim family. He found a chest and pried it open with tools, but the noise drew attention. DAA was ready to draw his sword. Laughter in the room misled the king, who assumed they were being intimate, and he left, heartbroken. Goodbye, my queen. The queen dreamed of attending a lavish party with a gorgeous woman. All was silent. The king opened the chest, only to find paper. The evidence was missing. He then approached the well, following a hunch. Lighting a torch, he peered inside. Something looked off. Just as he prepared to explore, footsteps approached. He hid, listening to two men talk about capturing a demon. Seizing the chance, the king used a trap to catch a hen and then released it outside. Quietly, he returned to his room. The queen, still sleeping, woke up feeling refreshed, a rare moment for her. Turning, she saw the king watching her. Had something happened while they were drunk? He acted strangely. The queen sensed he wanted to pretend they had slept together. Yet the messy room confused her. Both adjusted their collars and washed their faces, lost in their own thoughts. The queen was eager to return to the palace and rebuild her relationship with the Empress Dowager. The king, on the other hand, wanted to investigate the intruder's identity and find that missing evidence. Back in the palace, the Empress Dowager had no appetite. When the prime minister entered, she snapped at him. Bored and restless, she missed her niece dearly. He commented, "Why does the queen's food taste so good? It was made with genuine care. You said you were hungry this morning. Was it because you missed her cooking?" The palace kitchen was abuzz, but the queen's absence was felt. The chef laughed, still clinging to his role, but feared losing status upon her return. "I'm the best," he boasted. But then he spotted Mama and rushed over. Seeing her upset, he assumed the queen was in danger. She felt she had caused problems again. He comforted her and handed her a paper bag. Inside, dried beef. "He gave it to me? Why?" she wondered. "Why not throw it away himself? Is the queen returning to the palace or not?" People asked. The queen wanted street food, but the king scoffed. "Why eat this?" Half a second later, the food was gone. She had recognized it instantly and planned to replicate the dish in the palace. Bystanders began criticizing the king. "They'll meet their downfall soon," one said. Approaching with wine in hand, the king muttered, "Life's always been hard." He poured drinks for them. The queen calmed down. "Isn't he from a noble family?" someone asked. "Nah, just a hidden noble. Empty barrels make the loudest noise," someone joked. The court was a mess. The queen stood up, frustrated. "You think being king is easy? One mistake and you're poisoned or executed." The commoners grew uneasy. "I'm a huge fan of the king," she blurted. "I'll flip this table right now." The king quickly pulled her aside, warmed by her words. They walked together and found a vintage item. "It's beautiful," he said, but it turned out to be fake. Later, the queen ran to a game booth and spent all her money. "You shouldn't have," he said. "I'm sorry, miss. Please don't go." Meanwhile, the prime minister was again analyzing the queen's milk dish. Again? He had used up all the palace's milk supply. "Shut it!" someone snapped. It was getting embarrassing. Even the Empress Dowager, ever since tasting the queen's cooking, had lost interest in all other meals. Constantly hungry, she summoned the queen back. The queen was overjoyed by the news. She rushed to prepare food. The prime minister, desperate to learn her cooking secrets, humbled himself to sit near the fire. The flames rose. "Your eyes are burning," she teased. "I'm just determined. I don't like your attitude. Forget it. No more lessons," she said. Being a cheerleader's enough. Next, she decided to make a street food delicacy. First, she simmered beef tendons, added French-style broth, then used egg whites to neutralize the odor. "Egg whites? That's clever," someone noted. "Is this good enough? It looks amazing. But what do you need?" This dish has the power to stir souls, much like a modern-day egg beater. Next, the queen carefully layers the green beans and meat, then pours in rich beef broth. She finishes with a touch of whipped egg white for garnish. A refined dish is done. Yet, Empress Dagger looks unimpressed. "How could I eat something so common?" she scoffs, but her stomach growls too loudly to ignore. She reluctantly samples the dish. Dressed in traditional robes, the queen wears pants for the first time, symbolic of manhood, during her menstrual cycle. This small ache brings a subtle sadness that feels unsettling. It makes her question her identity. As her eyes close, it feels like spring. Out of nowhere, a marriage proposal comes. She says yes. But why would he look at me like that? She wonders. And yet, I also feel something. Meanwhile, the queen notices food on the table and feels unsettled. The Empress Dowager turns, a grain of rice stuck to her lips. A maid moves to wipe it off, but the queen sees the Empress's happy face and realizes it was all a trick. She cleverly designs a modern face mask. This isn't food, it's skincare. From then on, the queen lives in luxury. Even in a man's body, she's thrilled. Every night she dreams the same dream, and always the emperor appears behind her. "I'm very pleased," he says. She wakes in a daze. A butterfly lands on her hand, but then it flutters away. Just a leftover egg dream, she thinks. After awakening from this plant-like trance, acupuncture is needed. 3 long needles, like horns, are pulled out. The moment she sees them, bam, she wakes up fully. "Only a divine healer can cure without needles," someone says. She remembers something important. She forgot to schedule a selection for royal consorts. She hurries to arrange a selection contest. The queen greets every lady. "Nice to meet you. Hello. Hi." Confident in her male persona, she picks concubines by personal taste. That night, the queen lies awake, her mind full of the concubines' faces. She jumps up and maybe writes them letters. At her desk, she pens 3 letters. But somehow, they end up with His Majesty instead. "Are you asleep yet? Are you asleep yet?" he reads. Is this a hidden message? The two begin exchanging deeply emotional notes. But by morning, the queen reverts to her usual self. "Straight to the point," she insists. His Majesty has begun to understand the people's hardship. He decides to host a banquet for the poor. The chief steward weeps with joy hearing the imperial order. Meanwhile, the queen organizes a brutal hunting contest. The competitors? All royal concubines, each assigned an animal role. The bolder the animal, the higher the points. The highest score wins. At the signal, the game begins. But the queen finds it too cruel and takes no interest. While resting, she spots a eunuch. "Why are you here?" she asks. "I'm exhausted," he says, then scurries off for water. In the end, the Tiger Commander's son scores highest. The queen is awarded a lavish prize. Meanwhile, the day of the feast arrives, but due to careless storage, all the food has gone bad. The steward is distraught, but at least they caught it in time. Still, someone has tampered with the water, adding poisonous beans. The queen rushes into the kitchen and is stunned. "Where is the chef?" she cries. "He's vanished." This banquet is doomed, she thinks, afraid of disgracing His Majesty. A shadowy spy whispers, "The king specially invited me to cook today's meal, to ease his suffering." But with such limited ingredients, even a top chef would struggle. Soan remembers that palace banquets always carry political meaning. They aren't just meals, they're statements. "What should I make?" she wonders. Just then, the royal physician hands her a silver needle. An idea sparks. She recalls a dish from the modern world. About to dip the silver needle into boiling oil, the physician panics. "My precious needle," she reassures him. "I'll clean and sanitize it." And voila, a gourmet dish is made. One problem solved, but not enough people. "You there, peel this." "What about me?" "I heard you need a dental floss," someone says, joining the kitchen crew. "Slice it thin, peel it well." On the banquet side, palace officials sit, surprised by the rustic meal. They sneer. "This is peasant food." Am I the only one confused? Slowly, the queen brings out the second course. Stewed tomatoes. The key, perfectly kneading the dough. The head horse trainer puts his soul into it. "Like this. Push harder. It's brutal on the wrists," he shouts. The dish is served. The final course is dessert. Fancy in appearance, but actually just regular jelly. Everyone recognizes it instantly. This? Boring. But the Empress Dowager wins the lucky draw. Thanks to everyone's effort, the banquet succeeds. Just as the chief steward sips water, the palace eunuch rushes in. She's exhausted. Give her water to detox and relieve the itch. "Ugh, what's happening?" he groans. "My stomach feels like a nightclub. Thumping bass," he cries out. The king prays, pleading for mercy from the heavens, asking that his people be freed from hunger. As he weeps, the incense burner glows red. Clutching it with sorrow, he sticks 3 incense sticks, but can't light them, and sobs. Desperate for divine strength, he becomes the first king ever to enter a long jump contest using firecrackers as protection. Everyone bows. The empress, cold and cruel, quietly exits, leaving him alone, pitiful and in pain. He passes out. Thankfully, the royal physician treats him, and the king recovers. Returning to court, the Empress Dowager raises an uproar. "Why did this happen?" she demands. He denies all involvement. Queen Dager investigates, but finds only more mystery. At the same time, the queen feels overwhelmed with guilt and stress. The court turns chaotic. Nobles glare at General Kim, accusing him of evil and betrayal during power struggles. But this drama is all part of a clever scheme by the king. Before the ceremony, he secretly planted explosives to catch the family in the act. He even sent someone to buy pepper as proof, evidence linking the Kim family to stolen military arms. The king stripped them of their noble titles and demanded the Empress Dowager step back from ruling the country ever again. He decided to take charge of national matters himself. If he didn't wake up, he'd be useless, a burden. And if he became a burden, there would be no point in seeking revenge. The queen, overcome with emotion, rushed to the royal kitchen to make tea the moment she heard the king was alive. Panic and confusion rippled through the palace. Someone pleaded not to drink anymore. Others demanded the door be opened. Meanwhile, the king stumbled upon the banquet menu and realized something astonishing. It had been the queen helping him behind the scenes. That night, he rushed to her chamber, but she was asleep, deep in dreams. The night before had been intimate, and it haunted her the next morning. She wondered if she had truly slept with that man, horrified at her memory. She called it a melodrama, one she hadn't signed up for. The queen found herself caught in emotions she hadn't expected. Something about that night had left her shaken, and she couldn't stop thinking about it. She tried to reason with herself, convincing her mind that she was disgusted, but her heart said otherwise. Just as she was lost in those thoughts, the king came looking for her. Servants told him she had just been there. He was frustrated. She kept avoiding him. She, on the other hand, had resolved to no longer remain passive. She had seen enough of the world to know this was new territory. She compared the sensation to biting into unfamiliar bread, foreign yet exciting. Perhaps that's what drew her in. Elsewhere, the empress was plotting. Consumed by revenge, she rallied dozens of palace maids to assassinate the queen. The queen, unaware, nearly drank the poison water prepared for her, but soon enough, she understood the danger and decided to retaliate. From that point on, she became calculating, her presence sharp and commanding. She dressed impeccably, not to dazzle, but to warn. When the royal chef brought her a carefully prepared drink, she accepted it with narrowed eyes, noting that even bitterness had its own sweetness. She was served fried rice, plated with an artistic flourish. It was oddly beautiful. But behind the elegance, the message was clear. She was being watched. The palace was no longer a home, it was a battlefield. She had barely survived a poisoning attempt, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. At the next banquet, she met with the empress again. Their words were measured, smiles cold. Tension lingered beneath the pleasantries. The queen then received a bouquet of incense from So-eon. She didn't hesitate to threaten back. One wrong move, and the Empress's son would be the price. Even the Emperor, watching from afar, began to realize something. This woman did not need his protection. If anything, the court should fear her. Later that night, Hong Ryan, recalling the girl who once saved the queen, felt regret. He had never properly said goodbye. The queen found herself in a restless daze. She tossed and turned until she gave in and wandered to the study. There, she cooked herself instant noodles. The scent caught the Emperor's attention. Curious, he asked what they were. She shrugged it off, calling it an experiment, but in truth, she was testing herself more than the food. She debated whether to give in to comfort or resist. In the end, she chose the noodles, choosing to taste, to feel, to remember. Their study session turned casual as they ate together, silently sharing something deeper than conversation. Elsewhere, the palace stirred again. A sharp-tongued woman with heavy makeup appeared in the forest, vowing not to hold back. She warned others not to provoke the maid again. Her words were cryptic, but hinted at another plot. The queen, for all her struggle, found herself slowly warming to the king. His presence began to make her heart flutter. She didn't want to admit it, but her feelings were shifting. Seeking help, she visited her father. She pleaded for him to assist the king. Though bitter from past betrayals, her father reluctantly agreed. He launched a sweeping discount campaign, sparking chaos in the marketplace. People panicked, suspicious of hidden schemes. "He's lost it," some whispered. Despite his resistance, her father made sacrifices. He watched his wealth diminish, wondering if it would ever be worth it. The queen, determined, began building alliances. She honored General Kim Il-gyeon, a loyal soldier demoted unjustly, with a sword as a retirement gift. She knew he still held influence among the troops. His loyalty might one day be her salvation. She had once said, with resignation, that she was just a woman, powerless, but now she was ready to defy that idea. She declared she had nothing left to lose. At a banquet with high-ranking ministers, she made her intentions clear. No longer would she remain silent. She challenged them, physically, politically, and intellectually. "If you oppose the king, you'll have to face me too," was her unspoken warning. She even changed her name, shedding her old identity. From now on, she'd be Yan, So Yan. Later, she spoke to the king about things far beyond his time, a world centuries ahead. He listened, incredulous but intrigued. With her at his side, the king grew bolder. He began purging corrupt officials, restoring dignity to his court. The treasury, strangely, began to fill on its own. Guilty nobles, fearing exposure, returned their stolen wealth quietly. Yet the queen's ambition didn't stop. She trained the king like a student. First came constitutional theory, then physical fitness, then modern warfare. When she introduced gunpowder, the king was hesitant. When she mentioned her favorite drink, pear wine, he tried to replicate it, but failed. She felt queasy just thinking about drinking it again. And then the news came. The royal physician knelt after a long exam. She was pregnant. The queen froze, her expression unreadable. In ancient times, pregnancy came with harsh restrictions. She tried to escape it, to end it, but her attempts failed. The palace had hidden the pear wine. Furious, she demanded it back. Her tantrum was real. The king, trying to comfort her, took her riding in the woods. They escaped the noise of the palace, even as eunuchs shouted for them to return. He reminded her gently to take care of herself, for the child. But something about that sentence struck a nerve. She turned her horse around and rode back alone. Rumors quickly spread. Whispers claimed the child wasn't the king's, that the whole affair was staged. Rather than ignore it, the queen made a bold show of fury. In front of the palace staff, she denounced the lies. The gossip, however, reached the court. The queen mother was drawn in. Tensions escalated. In secret, the queen consort ordered Kim Bang-in, her foster brother, to kill the queen. But he hesitated. Instead of carrying out the plan, he went to the king and confessed everything. To protect the woman he now truly loved, the king made his decision. He would go to war. Dressed in his battle uniform, the king made his way forward, fully aware that the queen consort had orchestrated this trap. Yet, he still chose to walk a path from which there was no return, just as she had foreseen. It wasn't long before conflict erupted. The guards who were meant to protect turned their swords on Kim, directing their blades toward the king himself. Just days earlier, these very forces had devoured his loyal followers in mere moments. Pursued relentlessly by royal troops, the king ran desperately until he reached a cliff's edge. Without hesitation, he leaped, vanishing into the peaceful scenery below. Back in the palace, the queen, adorned in a traditional ceremonial outfit, ate a few small meals to calm her nerves in his absence. By nightfall, her thoughts turned increasingly dark. Then, unexpectedly, she felt the first movements of her baby. Was it too soon? Or perhaps the child was a prodigy. "My child must be a genius," she mused with wonder. Trying to distract herself, the queen began a guessing game with her court ladies. No matter how hard she tried, her mind was occupied only by the king. Then came the heartbreaking news. The king had perished. The shock hit her like a thunderbolt. Word of his supposed death spread throughout the palace quickly, but the queen couldn't accept it. Examining the details closely, she noticed inconsistencies with the king's corpse. It didn't add up, so she returned to the palace and quietly analyzed the situation. If a decoy body had to be used, then something must have gone wrong in the queen consort's plan. Someone must have silenced those who could bring him back. Two women wailed uncontrollably nearby, distracting Ian. Frustrated, she told them the king was still alive. She gently explained, "He may be gone, but he still lives on in your hearts." After a thorough inspection of the body from head to toe, she concluded it wasn't him. Details withheld. The women were stunned. It turned out the king had survived. To maintain appearances, the queen feigned mourning in public. "Why did you leave so soon? What about our child?" she whispered to herself. By nightfall, she packed a small bag and exited the palace through a hidden passage, determined to find him. She thought everything was perfectly arranged, but was shocked to run into unexpected figures along the way. They had been careless, and now others were tagging along, claiming they'd die of worry if they couldn't see the king. The queen was stunned at the sight. Meanwhile, in the royal court, the Queen Dowager wasted no time exploiting the king's absence. She arrogantly stepped into his role and began issuing orders to the ministers. She even commissioned an official proclamation declaring the king's death. Far away, 3 of them pushed deeper into the forest. Recognizing the grave danger, the queen urged the dowager to move forward, risking her own life to fend off the guards. At the critical moment, she threw herself into harm's way to prove her devotion. After ensuring the queen dowager's escape, Hye-sun disguised herself as the queen to confuse the attackers. The real queen fled, echoing the king's earlier escape moves. When the royal guards cornered her, Dyer stepped in with sword drawn, defending her despite his serious injuries. Before departing, Moy handed the queen a confidential list of traitors, urging her to use it for protection. He fought valiantly to the end, sacrificing himself to shield her. As the battle reached its climax, both sides unveiled hidden weapons. Before the final blow, Dubois demanded, "Who sent you?" The queen, overwhelmed by grief, was suddenly approached by someone familiar. She turned to see the king. Tears streamed down So-yeon's face like a child's. He hadn't died after all. He had been hiding in the philosopher's home nearby. Together again, the queen, the philosopher, and Hong Ryan rejoiced. But the prime minister remained uneasy about Hong Ryan, who seemed distant. Eventually, he gave up his position and climbed the mountain to find her. Unfortunately, he was captured by mountain folk planning to cook him alive. Suddenly, a booming voice cried out, "How did you end up here?" It was palace guard Hong Ryan. She was so shocked and excited that she stumbled, snapping the rope in the process. With the rescue done, attention turned to re-entering the palace. The king and queen devised a meticulous plan. They remembered the hidden food transport route. On their journey, they came across Dubois' lifeless body. To honor his sacrifice, they hid him safely in the mountains. Next, they hijacked a food delivery cart, hiding in the cramped, pitch-dark space. The king and queen recalled their instant-noodle moment. A grenade landed near them, but it was a dud, just a smoke bomb. Smoke bombs were then launched into the palace by Hong Ryan, who aimed precisely. One landed at the southern gate, while the prime minister fought his way through the north gate, slashing enemies with twin blades. The northern wall was breached. They re-entered the palace safely and confirmed the king was still alive. The prime minister nearly fainted in shock. The king calmed him. "Come with me. Don't panic," he added. With urgency, the king and queen changed into their formal attire and strode decisively toward the court, conducting a head count. Meanwhile, the king's fan club surged in strength. The scent of blood was thick in the air. Fearful of losing control, the Queen Dowager rushed the coronation ceremony. As the chief minister prepared to present the sacred jewel, they discovered a mixture of potassium nitrate and inert gas instead. Earlier, the queen had entrusted someone to replace the gem, but the person mistakenly took it to Low House for advice and decided to hide it. "Am I going to jail for this?" they muttered. Back at the palace, the royal couple entered together. The queen noticed a figure creeping along the roof. She turned sharply. "I'm fine," she assured. The noise startled her, but she was unharmed. "Soyan! Soyan!" While the king helped her stand, he suddenly collapsed. Thankfully, her bulletproof vest had held up. After regaining consciousness, the king was furious. He slapped away Prime Minister Kim Jae-jol's hat, forcing him to reflect on his crimes. Although the queen was gravely wounded, she was rescued by the royal physician and the empress. The queen consort was arrested and sentenced to indefinite imprisonment. The royal guard who spread the lies was also punished. Their assets were seized, and they were exiled to Be Calm, banished for good. The once ruthless warrior returned to his study, determined to resume his instant noodle experiments. As the king rushed to aid his beloved, their bond grew even stronger. What happened afterward? Well, most already know. Head chef Bong Hong eventually returned to the modern world. Though he held lingering feelings for the king, this magical journey changed him. Experiencing life as a woman taught him more than he expected, and he felt fulfilled. When Bong Hong left, the original soul of the girl returned to the queen's body. But after so long, the body still felt unfamiliar. "Damn it," she murmured, now juggling royal duties. And yet, all she could think about was the king. Always thoughtful, the king and queen took turns handling affairs, day and night. Finally, they met again by the lakeside. At long last. They'd missed each other too many times, fleeting moments scattered like 1,000 autumns. Yet the king still couldn't shake one lingering thought. Did he fall in love with the queen, or with Chef Bong Hong?